Welcome to Earth.
There's a reason why the idea of capturing lightning in a bottle has persisted for so long. It's the combination of being in the right place at the right time, with the right tools. In 1996, a director known for spectacle, a rising star, and sense of earnestness took the world by storm. When they tried to capture that magic again in 2016, the bottle might have been bigger, but the whole project just felt empty. Independence Day, also known as ID4, was the brainchild of director Roland Emmerich and frequent collaborator Dean Devlin. While promoting the release of super hit Stargate, Emmerich was questioned about his disbelief in aliens. He admitted the idea fascinated him and often wondered what would happen if 15-mile-wide ships just popped up all over the world. What followed was a joke many creators make. He turned to Devlin and said, "Hey, I think I have an idea for our next film." The fact that the two did actually make the movie speaks to Emmerich's tenacity, and it reflects in the movie. ID4, for all intents and purposes, was a love letter to alien invasion films of the 50s, like War of the Worlds or The Day the Earth Stood Still. Emmerich and Devlin also very smartly capitalized on the patriotism inherent in those movies. There's an innate optimism that permeates throughout ID4, and in typical Emmerich fashion, iconic destruction ensues in some of the best miniature work put to film. At this point in his career, Emmerich had yet to go full Emmerich, meaning that this was the first small step into what would become a career of voyeuristic destruction. After the attack, the US then rallies around the United States president, played wonderfully by Bill Pullman. President Whitmore is an everyman, ex-fighter pilot who longs for simpler times despite the life-changing decision to run for president. It's all incredibly silly, but so earnest in its homage to science fiction that while it lacks the teeth of its inspiration's context, it rounds the corner into charm.
Didn't I promise you fireworks?
Yeah.
Part of that is due to its stellar cast. From the aforementioned Bill Pullman as President Whitmore, Jeff Goldblum almost reprising his Jurassic Park role as scientist David Levinson, Randy Quaid as lovable eccentric Russell Cassie, and what might be ID4's greatest weapon, Will Smith as fighter pilot Captain Stephen Hiller. Smith was already a superstar due to his music career, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and co-lead in Michael Bay's Bad Boys. But as Hiller, Smith is standing on his own 2 feet and leading the charge in a major summer blockbuster, and it really is something special to see. Ethan Hawke has stated in numerous interviews that he was initially offered the role of Hiller, but disliked the script so much he threw the screenplay out of the window after mocking what are now considered iconic lines.
I could have been at a barbecue!
But Hawke admits what we all know. Smith understood the role. Emmerich has always been forthcoming in wanting to make popcorn-chomping blockbusters, and that's what Independence Day was. A scrappy movie that reveled in the optimism of the time while celebrating the camp of science fiction's past. Unfortunately for the movie's sequel, Independence Day Resurgence, released 20 years later, all of those ideas have been lost in favor of something more retreading of familiar ground than continuation. Initial plans began for a sequel as early as 2001, but with the pair unable to crack the story, it wasn't until 2009 that Emmerich and Devlin announced they were again working on the film, this time with plans for a trilogy. The two had the idea to film 2 sequels back-to-back, calling them ID Forever Parts 1 and 2. Now, it gets fairly murky here on the exact specifics of what made the team settle on one movie, but we do know a pitch was made complete with previs and the basic beats of the pilot were settled to focus on a new generation of main characters. Again, directed by Emmerich, the movie is a hodgepodge of voices, some mining for nostalgia,
This one is definitely bigger than the last one.
and others desperate to be the first in an ongoing story, and it shows in the final draft. The basic premise is that years after the initial invasion, a homing beacon has been set off at an alien crash site and brought in a new invading army. There's also an alien AI and new government agencies built on alien technology. Everything is so much more than the bare-bones plot of ID4. But within all that space, there's still a sense of something missing. Part of that longing is the absence of Smith. While several versions of the script were written featuring the beloved Captain Hiller, the exact reason for not appearing varies. Most say it's due to the high asking price of $50 million, while Smith said he was just too busy filming Suicide Squad. In his stead are 2 characters, Jake Morrison, played by Liam Hemsworth as the cocky fighter pilot, and Hiller's son, Dylan, played by Jesse T. Usher. The problem relates again back to Hawke's perfect framing of what we all thought. Smith just got it. Independence Day was a movie filled with cheesy dialogue,
No, sir. Just a little anxious to get up there and whoop E.T.'s ass, that's all.
improbable circumstances, and plot-perfect happenstance. But we bought in because the promise of fun and old-school science fiction was so prevalent. In Resurgence, we have a lot more mimicking. Hemsworth tries his best to be the cocky and confident fighter pilot archetype we know, but it all comes across more as arrogant.
Okay, everyone get out. I'm taking off.
There was a vulnerability, anger, and fear under all the bravado of most characters in ID4. When we watch Morrison stand in front of the aliens, everything feels aloof and inconsequential. There's a sense that this is just one more box to check before moving on to the next set piece. For all that disaster and devastation Emmerich had shot, everything here feels light because the characters are more breezing through the moments instead of reckoning with them. It's an off dichotomy that demands grandeur while still trying to give small, intimate moments, which is something most blockbusters demand. One conceit of Resurgence is that humanity had adapted the alien technology of the first attack and worked the tech into its military program, and that's really its biggest hook. We have stronger, faster, more efficient jets and military equipment. It's as if the movie wants us to disregard the underdog story of ID4. When we watched Hiller outmaneuver one alien ship in the first movie, it was only through his skill at flying and his hubris that let him escape. There was a weight in this scene. One where we watched a small, frail human try to outwit a vastly superior species. When it works, it triggers our own confidence, our inner voice that tells us that we can do anything. It inspires us in a way that reminds us that humanity's greatest strength is a refusal to give up no matter the odds or circumstances. It is not a new idea. In fact, the now infamous President Whitmore speech is a paraphrasing of a monologue from Henry V, a call to rally worried soldiers to believe they are fighting for immortality through history.
Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.
Resurgence doesn't really have that moment, and we're not just talking about a mirroring rally experience, just a moment where it expands on the idea of humanity in the way ID4 did. For all the original's warts and shortcomings, it wanted to speak on defiance and determination in a way that inspired us, that made us remember what makes us feel special. But Resurgence seems to only want to capitalize on the first film's success. Part of that success rested on the shoulders of returning stars Jeff Goldblum and Bill Pullman. In the original movie, each character was intended to feel relatable despite their extraordinary jobs. While Whitmore was the president, there was a folksy intent in Pullman's performance. He felt like a fish out of water, a hero who was so beloved the country felt like he could lead them anywhere despite his protests. There's a character arc known as The Lie They Believed. It generally follows a character who learns what they believed is untrue. As Whitmore makes his now iconic speech, it's remarkable to see him accept the man everyone around knew he could be. That's not quite the arc Goldblum's David Levinson takes though. Commonly called a prophet in horror movies, David is the character who knows despite a world that doesn't believe him. And this is a perfect part for an actor like Goldblum, whose mannerisms loft between nervous anxiety and all too cool acceptance. When his heroic moment comes in the movie's third act, it feels powerful. In Resurgence, however, each character's path feels far-fetched from the men we left. Whitmore now has a psychic connection to the aliens, while Levinson is now running the newly formed agency tasked to deal with alien studies. While neither of these are far-fetched in a world where laptops hack extraterrestrial motherships, they each feel like a betrayal to the physical and emotional work the two had put in the first movie. It's a continuous mantra of, here are some things you loved from the past, now we want to capitalize your time even further. The movie works as almost a highlight reel. Dogfights, alien communication via possession, a heroic self-sacrifice, and obligatory monument destruction. It merely does everything bigger. The end of Resurgence tries desperately to expand its world with the introduction of an alien AI that says Earth needs to participate in a universal protection against the alien invaders who have conquered various other planets. What we're left with isn't an optimistic feel of ID4's ending, just the obligation that there is so much more to do.
We are gonna kick some serious alien ass.
And that's simply not what we want from the promise Emmerich had made 20 years before, a big spectacle of mindless summer fun. A movie that charms us, reminds us it's okay to celebrate, and rests on the basic idea that humanity can overcome insurmountable odds.
Happy 4th of July, Daddy. Same to you, Munchkin.
So what do you think? What are some movies that go so much bigger than the original that you love? Let us know down in the comments below, and while you're here, click on one of the thumbnails to watch some more examinations of franchises. As always, thank you for watching.